welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker. Thanks for joining us. However you may be joining us, we appreciate it very, very much. Always glad to have with me Chris Pulaski. Chris, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me, Keith.
And you know what, Terrebonne Parish Planning and Zoning Director, you keep getting the questions asked of, where are people, how are they doing, who's moving who, where are the base camps, where are people being, and I know it's a constant flow of information, but we appreciate you coming on to give us updates about where things stand.
Sure.
We really do. So I know we've started to have some transition out of these base camps. Tell us a little bit about that transition.
Well, at one point in time, we had 5 base camps operating in the parish. Since then, we've closed down the 3 base camps that we had in the lower areas, Dulac, Chauvin, and Montague.
Right.
Now, we've been tracking the numbers all throughout this process.
Right.
And when we got to the point where we started to see, I think it was Dulac, where the numbers started getting low first, we started really focusing in on those occupants and caseworking those folks along with help from the state,
Sure.
of course, and with FEMA to find out, okay, well, what options are available to this person and what blocks or hindrances they may be experiencing to get them into that option. Are they waiting for, an inspection for, the property that they're looking to place the trailer or whatever it may be?
Right.
So we were able, through that process, to reduce those numbers down to the point where we were able to close them all down. Now, we didn't just turn off the switch and say, okay, everybody, you got to get out.
Right.
But
it was a strategic plan.
Correct. It was a staggered and very well administered closure. So now we have 2 base camps in operation. We have the one on Scott Lane behind the Bayou Tower site, and then we have the one on Williams Avenue at the old Legion Park site. Right.
And again, some of these people were probably waiting on families' homes to be, livable again, or some of those things. And so I don't want people to think that, that every one of those people, we worked on that, we got them a trailer, and we moved them out. It wasn't necessarily the case that way.
Great point. Everybody's situation is a little bit different. So some of the people who transitioned out of the base camps may have gone into either a state or a FEMA housing unit. Some of them were given vouchers. As I understand it, I think now the vouchers are as far out as Alabama.
Wow. But they don't have to become Alabama fans.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. That's
correct.
It's not a mandate.
And then some people, were able to transition back into their home. It is one of those on a case-by-case basis, and that's how we continue to work it for the occupants that we still have. I had a 3-hour call this morning. I had another call like that last week where we were going person by person, identifying. We had, I think there were 17 people on that Zoom conference call. Some of them were state, some of them were FEMA, the contractors, APTM, all those kinds of folks. And we go line by line and identify what, each person's in need of.
Yeah, and again, you can't just say everybody's the same, and they're all different. It's case by case, and that's why you have to kind of manage those cases. It's wonderful that y'all have the opportunity to do some of that case management, because it's a rare and unique situation to have a base camp as it is, much less figuring out what to do and how to do that and what the timeline is. So great job in doing that and figuring out what to do with those, and those 3 closing because they were no longer in need.
That's right.
Yeah.
And, Scott Lane, we have occupants. I think the majority of the occupants in Scott Lane are Bayou Tower residents. So we know that for those folks, primarily they'd be looking at going into one of the group sites. And I know we're going to be talking about that on an upcoming segment. But the group sites, we have both FEMA and the state. I mean, we're getting to the point, at least with the state, where their group site currently is starting to fill up, so they need to identify the next group site. And the same for FEMA. They've identified sites, but they have to lay down infrastructure to have those sites ready for trailers to be brought in. So until that time becomes available, we'll still have people staying in base camps.
Right. And sometimes, and that's the thing, sometimes they're moving into those group sites, sometimes they're getting a voucher and going to a hotel somewhere. And quite frankly, some of them are trying to get a trailer at their home, and we're having to go through the permitting, which we're going to talk about a little bit later, and making sure that everything is in place. There's a lot of steps to take, and I don't want to use the word red tape because that's not what it is. There are a lot of steps to take to get these people moved and to get them where it's comfortable and where they can operate. For example, there are some people that are Bayou Towers residents that are staying behind Scott Lane in that group camp or that base camp that can't maybe walk up steps to go into a trailer.
That's
So
right.
there's some of those situations that exist and conditions.
We just last week, I recall a conversation I had with a property owner. She was issued a FEMA, or I'm sorry, it was a state travel trailer, but they aren't able to equip those. I mean, the state travel trailers, guys, I mean, those are
campers.
Those are the campers that
That's
you
right.
see, that you go by at any of the RV places along the side of the highway. So they can't really outfit those with handicap access ramps and stuff. But in this particular person's case, all she needed was just a wider set of steps that were easier to navigate than the fold-out ones that
Right,
kind of
right.
drop out of
Right.
those things. I mean, those are
Right.
those are pretty tricky. I don't care who
They
you
are.
are.
Yeah, tricky for me every day.
Yeah, so it's just every person's a little bit different. So it's just a matter of having that conversation, and then we can identify the issue and then get it. We know the people who to call to get it solved. So.
And get it fixed. So some great information, Chris. We appreciate it. We're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. A lot more from Chris Pulaski and the planning for what people need as we move forward. Don't go anywhere. A lot more Bayou time when we continue.
The new year is here, and A.J. Doman Chevrolet is happy to announce we are South Louisiana's newest business elite, medium duty, and commercial dealer. We are now taking orders for all business and fleet customers. Looking for a car or truck and can't find what you're looking for? Come see us. We have over 150 used cars in stock, and new cars arriving daily.
And remember, no credit, bad credit, foreclosure, we can help.
A.J. Doman Chevrolet at the foot of the Morgan City Bridge in Berwick.
Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. Again, your host Keith Weissite, licensed clinical social worker. Very glad you are joining us. Very glad joining me, Chris Pulaski, Terrebonne Parish Planning and Zoning Director, and the person that we go to for all of our updates, and we appreciate it, about what we're doing for this plan moving forward. Spent a lot of time talking about the closing of some of those base camps, 3 of the 5, that we still have 2 of those that are open, and what we're doing with that. But a lot of people are seeing, if you drive down 311, you're seeing that next movement of what's happening. That's the Rebecca site, and those are all state trailers, right?
That's correct. Rebecca Village.
Rebecca
is what
Village,
they're
right.
calling. So those are all state travel trailer programs. So those are the ones that GOSEP and Aptum have been working to have placed in the parish. There's roughly about 250 sites out there, and from what I understand, it's at or very near capacity right now.
Right, and they got those up very quickly.
Very quickly.
I was very impressed. And listen, my wife and I have done a lot of camping. Right now, we're camping in our driveway. It's a different kind of camping than we're used to. But I mean, I know what it takes for some of the renovations of some of those big campgrounds. So transitioning that field into a campsite is remarkable, and especially in the amount of time they did it.
Well, one of the things that made Rebecca Village an attractive site was because the infrastructure was already in place. So that subdivision was a commercial subdivision approved back in 2012. Mm-hmm. And so it scored really high on the state's site assessment because while they still needed to tap into the utilities like the power, the water, the electrical, the sewer,
Sewage, right.
It was all there.
Right.
So that could happen in a fairly quick amount of time as opposed to, say, a site that's completely vacant with no improvements at all.
Right.
So they have done a good job. They're now putting finishing touches on things like having all the units have their addresses clearly marked. They've put that into a GIS format, so it's been submitted to our 911 emergency response services. So if a call comes in that there's something happening at a particular travel trailer, the law enforcement or whoever it is that's responding doesn't have to drive row after row after row to figure
Trying to
out,
find it,
because they
right.
all look the same.
Right. Right. They're
You know?
all very, very similar.
Yeah. But also all the wraparound services, laundry services. Okay, you know, these things aren't coming with, you know, washers and dryers.
Most aren't, right.
Most aren't.
Right.
And so what about that? I mean, I think the truck stop out there might have a small laundromat.
Very
but
small.
There's, I'm sure, a line of people. So President Dove and Earl Hughes got with the state folks and put in requests, you know, for laundry services, not just at the Rebecca Village site, but throughout the parish, because there are not a large number of laundromats in Terrebonne. So there are people who still need that service. School buses to the group site, mail, you know, cable television services, all those kinds of things that, you know, we may take for granted in our, you know, at home. You know, all those services had to be brought out for those folks. Public transit, you know, Good Earth Transit and Council on Aging are working together to provide, you know, transportation services. There is a bus route. I think the closest bus stop initially was at Fletcher, and there is one out at the group site location now. So, you know, there's all that's happening, but it's something that, you know, again, this is the first time the state and Terrebonne have done this. So, you know,
To partner in addressing those things. And listen, I will tell you, with the changing weather patterns that we have, you almost go through twice as much clothes. Yeah. And the reason I know that is because although we have a unit that has a washer and dryer, the washer didn't work.
Right.
And we've got to go and wash our clothes. Now, my wife likes to dry the clothes at home, but you know what? It's not that easy, because you go to a laundromat, and there are several really nice ones. They're kind of expensive.
Yeah.
So having that close by, that you live with quarters, and that's okay, because that's kind of what you need to do. But having that available, it's just one of those things that we appreciate that you're looking into that.
Right.
And I can appreciate that for someone who's in need of that. So, and thanks for mentioning the resources getting there, you know, transportation, buses for kids. And it's great that they are now having identifiable sites and numbers, so that, especially, you know, EMS, you know, working in home health and hospice, I can tell you that's one of those things that matters to me. If a patient's in need, you know, we want to get to them as quickly as we can. It's an emergency.
You know, Clay Knockan, the solid waste department, I mean, they were able to get garbage cans delivered out there, so they have daily, well, it's not daily pickup,
right,
but
twice a week like
everybody else.
Right.
But they have that. I mean, those are all the kinds of little details that you can't ignore, because those little details become big problems if you do ignore them. So.
Yeah. And so again, you mentioned that is about 250.
Yeah,
roughly?
I think it's 244.
Right. Okay. It's right. Okay.
Number.
Underneath that, but in filling up very, very quickly, and so it goes to the next question, which is going to lead to our next segment here about permitting and where we are with that with the parish. But all of those things needed to get permits before they could get out there and people could move into them. And there was a process there, and y'all have moved forward with that. Before we go to the break, is there plans to expand, Rebecca?
Well, I know that the state had identified other group site locations, and they're looking into that. And the same with, and there's room at Rebecca to expand, so they may do it there.
Right.
I don't know yet. I'm hoping to find out information about that later on today.
Okay, great.
And then we're still working with FEMA. They've identified group sites that they're looking at, but it'll be some time before those are ready.
Okay, very good. Guys, we're going to take another short break. A whole lot more with Chris Pulaski when we continue. Don't go anywhere.
There are many strengths in our cancer center. I think one of the biggest is patients don't have to go elsewhere to get technology for their diagnosis and treatment of their cancer. Our treatment machine, the linear accelerator, allows us to pinpoint and treat cancers with more accuracy than ever was possible before. Mary Bird Perkins Cancer Center provides leading-edge technology with the highest quality care and the best treatment options unique to each patient.
Hello and welcome back to this edition of Value Time. Again, your host, Keith Weissach. Thank you so much for joining us. Very glad to have with me Chris Pulaski, Terrebonne Parish Planning and Zoning Director, making plans and coordinating things that are needed for people in the parish. One of those things with all the people that are needing this temporary and our long-term housing is to make sure that we're getting options for people. They got to have permits to do it, and that goes through your office, and it just takes a while, and sometimes there's a bit of a backlog.
Yeah, we have a regulatory division that everybody just calls the building permit office, right? Mm-hmm. So with the influx of permits that we've had coming in for both the state and FEMA housing programs, we've brought in additional staff that's all they do. We actually borrowed them from other departments.
Oh,
so
nice.
Thank you to Roddy and to Kelly for loaning me their folks. But and they're doing a great, Jeanette and Heather are doing a great job. So I want to give them
kudos to them.
Kudos to them and the rest of the permit staff. Thank
Right.
you guys. I know you guys are working really hard. So we, like the group sites that we were talking about earlier, we can expedite that really quickly because we're dealing with, a large contractor and we're dealing with these large sites. So it's not the individual private sites. Those take a little bit longer because each site has its own little set of circumstances.
Right.
Some are zoned or not zoned. And for the travel trailers, we've executive order from President Dove, alleviated some of those zoning restrictions for travel trailers, but that's not the case for mobile homes because mobile homes have a tendency to become permanent.
Right.
And so we wanted to leave those, at least the zoning regulations, in effect. So we've had to work through that. But all that while where that's happening, we have all the rest of the building permits for all the repairs for everybody's homes that are coming in. And then we have the usual volume of new construction.
Right.
Now we have a lot of new construction because
Right.
a lot of new residential construction permits are starting to show up. So we have new residential, commercial. We have, business
Rebuilds,
is still,
right.
and business is still moving. People are still leasing office space, now more so than ever because they need to get into a new office.
Right.
We have everything, public use permits, fireworks permits. We're coming up on Mardi Gras. We're going to have reviewing stand permits.
Right.
That doesn't stop.
Right.
And we want to keep business moving forward, of
Sure.
course. So, we're working. We have an agreement with a consulting group who has experience not only in the My Permit Now system software, but they've done work for other jurisdictions. So we have them coming in to help us with that backlog. We just need to knock that backlog out. Once that happens, then we'll be able to process things a lot faster. Knock on wood, I've got a full staff again. In fact, we're going to be expanding with the new budget that's been approved in 2022. We had thankfully had put in to expand some of the departments, including nuisance abatement. They're going to be real busy with a lot of derelict structures and condemnations and so forth. So all of that's, if somebody's looking for a job, I would say go to the parish. Every day it seems that job vacancy list is getting longer.
Wow.
And some of the positions I have, some are highly specialized, and then some are not.
Some are not.
So I would invite anybody who needs it to take a look.
Let's decrease the unemployment rate.
Yes.
And come to work for the parish because
That's
there's lots
right.
of options available.
The other big thing that we have, that'll be coming about in the near future, we're already working on it, but publicly, is, the recovery plan. Mm-hmm. And I'm not just talking about, like, say, the downtown area, for example,
Right.
parish-wide.
Whole parish.
Right. We had some projects that we were ready to move forward with just prior to the hurricane. Those are starting to pick back up. Some parks and other, and that's what I'm going to be focusing on, are quality of life type projects, for the moment at least. Parks, whether Homa Heights Park on the east side, the Belanger Street block closure, those are the kinds of things that we're still moving forward on. But we're also looking at, the longer term recovery plans. We know that we have a massive amount of debris cleanup and demolitions that are going to be taking place. We have a number of structures, not just downtown, but parish-wide, that we need to work with those property owners to either repair or demolish.
Right.
You know, those are the kinds of things that I get that, I mean, it hurts. You know, it hurts you in your heart.
Yeah,
when you go by and you see that.
Something that was
And
there
in
your
head,
whole life.
Your heart and your head.
Yeah, you're right about that.
You feel
You're
it.
exactly right, Chris.
And it helps that the debris piles, you know, they're starting to go away, but
Right.
you know, you go down in other locations and they're still there. I mean, that's a long process, but we are serious about, you know, working with property owners to take care of these structures that have been heavily damaged. And whether we're able to do that through FEMA's public assistance grant, where we might actually get FEMA to help offset some of those costs, or if it's just something that we as a community are going to have to absorb and bear the brunt on ourselves. It's just a process that we're going to have to go through. And I just ask everyone to remain patient and vigilant, and it will come about.
Right, and just a lot of those things, people have been waiting on insurance, and a lot of those things have delayed that. I know we're still in the process of doing the same thing, and we know we're going to have these issues, and we're going to keep talking about it. And so I love the fact that we're making plans for what the hopeful future is going to look like in taking care of things a little bit at a time as we can.
And we're going to be looking, I want everybody to be on the lookout for the future. We're going to be inviting comments from the public.
Input.
This is not just Chris Pulaski or President Dove's recovery plan. This will be Terrebonne Parish's recovery plan.
Chris, we can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. All right, guys, that'll do it for this segment of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming when we continue.